How's it going everyone, it's Gubby here, and in today's video we're going to be looking at disturbing Reddit posts you probably haven't heard of before. I don't want to waste any more of your time, so let's just get straight into it. I recorded the moment a guy came to my house with a gun. I am in university right now, but staying with my parents at their house for the summer. I was hanging out with one of my friends and we decided to go to a party. I met this guy around my age. We were talking and having fun, but it was nothing too serious, or so I thought. We exchanged phone numbers. We hung out a couple times, but he became incredibly clingy right from the start, so I decided to distance myself in the hope that he would get the hint and back off. Well, he didn't. When I stopped responding, he sent me over 100 messages, with each message becoming increasingly more aggressive as time went on. Keep in mind, it had been less than 2 weeks before we first met. I finally responded and told him he needed to chill out. He appeared to calm down a little bit after I responded, but he then asked for a phone call. I agreed, and we talked for a while. He told me that he couldn't stop thinking about me, that I was the best thing that ever happened to him, etc. Just a bunch of stuff that is way too intense to say to someone you barely know. I tried to let him down gently, reminding him that I was only home for the summer and wasn't looking for anything serious beyond a fling. But this only made him angrier. He started yelling at me, insulting me, calling me a slut. Basically a complete 180 from what he had been saying mere minutes ago. Then all of a sudden, the phone went silent. After a pause, he said in a quiet voice, "Bitch, you had better get ready because I'm coming over for you." And then he hung up the phone. This was very frightening because he knew my parents were out of town for the week and that I was staying at their house alone. However, he didn't know where my parents' house was because I was always the one driving, and he didn't know my friend either, so I thought he had no way of figuring it out, since again, I'm normally living at school in another state. Regardless, I locked all the doors and shut the blinds just in case. After a while, maybe an hour or so, I fell asleep. When I woke up, I looked at my phone and saw a notification on my lock screen. It was from the Ring app, indicating that there have been movement on my parents' camera. It was him. If you watch the video, you can clearly see something in his hand. When he notices the camera, however, he left. I immediately blocked him on everything and reported the incident. I have no idea what he planned to do once he got here. It was terrifying to realize that he had come here when I was asleep and defenseless and completely unaware of his presence. As I would later find out, he was able to get my address from my phone number. Apparently he googled it, and it returned my dad's name as the owner of the phone number, along with my parents' address. Since I'm on my parents' phone plan, I guess it shows up that I still live here. This revelation was horrifying as I never knew my phone number could reveal my home address. I am still extremely upset that this kind of private information is on the internet for anyone to find, as it's incredibly dangerous that websites will just give this away to anyone. Please learn from my mistakes and do not give anyone your phone number unless you trust them. I found out that you can get a free Google Voice number to text and call people, and that number can't be traced back to you so easily. My advice is to use a disposable number for anyone you're talking to that you meet informally or online. I still can't sleep at night. Hopefully this never happens to anyone else. The OP then left a YouTube link which showed the incident. Now of course, many people were concerned about the situation and asked the OP if she reported it. She responded, yes, but they were surprisingly dismissive. Our area has had a substantial uptick in crime lately. Lots of homeless camps around, so I guess this wasn't considered very high on their priorities. They kinda made me feel like it was my fault, to be honest. They told me to make sure I locked my doors, change my phone number, and to call them back if he comes by again. One other commenter suggested that the OP asked them for a copy of your visit, since they're allowed to do this via public record. They also said to make sure they understand you have the response documented. Adding on, they said if you have trouble with this man again when you call the police, give that officer a copy of your copy. Ask for a copy of the report on that visit and underline the officer's response of action. At this point, you document everything the officers do as well as what your stalker does. public record is your friend. Also, have you done a criminal background check on this person? He may have priors. If he does, document that you give a copy to the cops. Another person asked this. Okay, so it looks like he got out of the vehicle on the street with the lights on. After he saw the camera, he didn't walk back to that car. Did he go around to the other side of the house trying to get in? I'm glad you reported this to the police. That is something I have been wondering about as well. The camera only started recording after he arrived, so I can't say for sure he came out of that car. I know he doesn't own one, which would mean that a friend or relative had knowingly driven him to my house with a weapon. Reading through the other comments, people are genuinely pissed about the situation, and I don't really blame them. The most disturbing part about the story is that when he quickly changed his mind on her. He was so clingy and lovey at first, but then when he got rejected, he became a monster. All we can hope is that the OP is safe and sound, and that this man never shows up to her house ever again. I was stalked by a female solo camper for several days while on our mountain camping honeymoon. The post starts off as so. It was the summer of 2016, and I had just married my longtime girlfriend. Over the course of our 12-year relationship, we had traveled to the mountains several times in both summer and winter for camping, but we also liked to stay in nice mountain hotels and snowboard the slopes. Naturally, we both agreed that this is how we wanted to spend the first weeks of our marriage. We booked a 20-day stay at a mountainside campground on the other side of the country. We also decided to bring our dogs with us as they too love being outdoors, and we generally bring them camping anyways. After 2 days of road tripping, we had arrived. We had quickly set up and settled in for a good long stay on the mountain. It was beautiful. A couple days into our trip, and we had already met a bunch of fellow campers. We are very experienced campers, so we generally attract a lot of attention from novice campers asking for tools or supplies, as they see we are all well set up. We are usually more than happy to help people get situated if they need matches, cream, or sugar, or help setting up their equipment. It was day 4 or 5 when she first made her presence known to us. I will refer to this person as she or her, as we never learned her name. We were sitting down under the shade of the large pine tree at the edge of our seat, drinking beers and playing cards when she seemingly appeared out of nowhere. She was just suddenly right there. "Can I pet your dog?" she said. Even my dogs didn't see her approach, as the very sound of her voice triggered them into a startled frenzy. As the dogs were worked up already, I politely told her no. Then she just stood there, at the edge of her sight. Didn't say a word, just stood there sort of existing, but not really doing anything. She wasn't exactly staring at us or looking at anything in particular. I asked her if she needed anything and she said no. After a few minutes she walked off. I work with people with brain injuries, so I've had my fair share of experiences with unusual behaviors, including people with poor social skills. So I wasn't about to write this person off as creepy just yet, but she had my attention. I casually watched her walk off and enter a campsite across the path and a few sites down from ours. There was already a small tent set up in the site, but she proceeded to pull an even smaller single-person tent from her backpack and began setting it up. The day prior, we saw 2 young girls setting up the other tent and were clearly the occupants of the site. There was no further interaction with her that day, although we did notice that the owners of the other tent on the site were not around at all that day, and we didn't see them return that night. Well, the next morning, I am walking to the camp showers to clean up for the day. As I walk past her site, I see she is sitting in her little tent reading a book. The door to the tent is open. I pay no attention and keep on my way to take my shower. When I'm done with my shower and walking back, I notice her tent is now closed but is jiggling about, so I know someone is in there. Then she made her presence known in a big way. Just as I'm approaching her site on her way to mine, she unzips her tent, and I immediately see that she is completely nude. She then positions herself just inside the tent at the door and lets out this over-the-top full body stretch and holds her arm way up to the sky while pushing her chest forward like it was some kind of mating ritual designed just for me. While she does this, she only lets out what I only describe as an exotic moan. It was pretty obvious she was putting on a show for me. I continue on my way to the site and tell my wife about the display I had just witnessed. We both laughed it off and moved on with our day to hike a good trail to a waterfall. The trailhead for this hike was accessible from the campgrounds, so we didn't have to drive to get there. We just walked the additional 2 kilometers to the trail. We walked at a good pace, so when we got to the trail, We decide to stop for a few minutes and take some photos of the surrounding mountains before heading into the thicker bush. After sitting there for maybe 5 minutes while my wife is taking pictures, she emerges from the trail that leads towards the campground. At first I thought, okay, coincidence. She's staying here and this is a pretty common trail. But then she sees that I see her, and she stops dead in her tracks and just stands there. Same demeanor as our first encounter, just standing. Not doing anything in particular, but also sending creep vibes our way. This was the first time I said to my wife, I think we have a stalker. Confused, my wife then looks to where I'm looking and is immediately a little creeped out. Once again I think, whatever, maybe she's just hiking the trail, no big deal. So we continue on the trail at a good pace and she maintains a consistent distance behind us. Our dogs at this point are a little distracted by her and our youngest dog keeps turning around to watch her. I got a little fed up with the dog constantly stopping to look back, so I decided we will stop for some water and let this woman pass. Well, what does she do but fucking stop walking when we stop and once again just stands there. Okay, so now we are genuinely concerned because this is approaching horror/suspense movie creep level and I start to wonder what this girl's intentions are. Standing motionless at that distance and refusing to pass us just ramped up the oh shit factor to about 9. So my wife and I agreed to just give up and cut the hike short by taking the shorter loop, which was only another half kilometer ahead. We managed to get some distance between us by jogging every time we would make a turn and when she was out of sight. We didn't see her again until later that night. That night, my wife decided to take an evening shower at the camp showers. When she returned to her camp, she told me her stalker was in the bathrooms, also taking a shower. This time, however, she was with 2 other girls and appeared to be getting ready for a night at the club. There is a nearby ski town that has a few nightclubs and bars, so it was reasonable to see the girls getting ready for a night out. The 2 girls she was with were the 2 we saw previously set up at her site. My wife explains that she quickly picked up on the fact that the 2 girls and our stalker friend were not well known to each other. It was clear that the 2 girls were close friends with plans to go out partying, and our stalker was making an attempt to be friends and sort of invited herself to join them in their night out. Now we know the ski town well, and the girls kept reinforcing that they were meeting at a specific restaurant before going to the bar. It was currently 10:30 p.m. and we know that the restaurant they were telling her to go at was closed at 10 p.m. They were lying to her about their plans. The stalker kept asking them too, "Are you sure this place? Are you sure?" They convinced her, and she then left her tent to finish getting ready while the 2 friends stayed in the bathroom to finish their makeup. My wife went on to explain how after she left the 2 friends, they were mocking and making fun of her stalker. They were young 20-somethings acting like little kids in elementary school. My wife has no time for that. Creepy stalker or not, she had to say something to the girls for their behavior. My wife calls them out on their behavior. Well, putting all the catty bitch bullying aside, the girls explained to my wife that the stalker girl had set up her tent on their site when they were staying with a friend in Ski Town. When they returned, they found her living at their site without invitation. She had just taken it upon herself to take a little corner of their site without knowing them at all. The girls said they were upset with her and trying to make her feel uncomfortable so she would leave, but she wouldn't leave. Of course, my wife just asked them why they didn't just report her to the park warden. The excuse they gave was that they were leaving the next day and didn't want to make a huge deal out of it. So whatever happened between them and the fake late dinner planned and clubbing is unknown to us. About 3 a.m. that same night, we were all awoken to a blood-curdling scream right outside our camper. At first I was like, holy shit, that must be a wild animal. My wife is trembling, dogs barking, and I'm startled but curious. I peel back the window cover to see her, standing motionless on the path outside our trailer. I had the window cover down maybe 8-10 centimeters when she appeared to make direct eye contact with me. My heart rate is jacked. What the actual fuck? After gazing in my general direction what seemed like an eternity, she calmly turns around and walks to her tent. I will make sure our trailer is locked. After a good hour and a stiff whiskey, we managed to get back to sleep. So the next day is Friday. We have friends from a nearby major city coming up the mountains to spend the weekend with us. We hadn't seen them in a while, so we are excited for a couple of days together. Well, they are not at our site for 15 minutes, and as they're setting up their tent, she mysteriously appears out of nowhere yet again. Like bam, there she is, but now this time, she is actually in our sight. I hadn't had a chance to tell our friends about her before she arrived, so they were a little more friendly than I was. She asked me once again if she can pet my dog, who during all of this is barking at her. I think I said something like, She isn't being very friendly towards you right now, so I would prefer if you didn't. She didn't pet my dog, but she also just stood there staring at me like she was considering how she would dismember my limbs. She then notices our friend's tent brand as he is still setting it up and comments on how it's the same models as her, although a larger sleeping capacity. My buddy has picked up on the creep vibes and my general displeasure with her presence, so he just gives her the, "Oh yeah, cool," and keeps setting it up. Well, she starts grabbing at the tent pegs and picks up the hammer and says she will help him set it up cause she has experience with it. My buddy declines and asks for his tools back. Cue the fucking psychopath stare down, but this time she has a hammer in her hand, adding on to the oh shit factor. She literally just drops everything right there and runs off. I go on to explain the last few days to her friends, and they agree we need to keep an eye on her. So by this time the two girlfriends whose site had just been hijacked were packed up and gone. It's now Friday night and we've been drinking all day, so we're feeling pretty good. It's maybe about 11 PM when she walks over to her site again. She says, "Hey, you guys seem to have a lot of extra room with the tent and a camper. Do you think I could stay with you guys tonight? We could have a lot of fun in there together." My buddy is feeling pretty good from all the day beers, so he's pretty forward when he replies, "Did you just propose a gangbang to us?" Now this whole time I'm just sitting in my camp chair with my whiskey taking this all in. She wasn't really taking notice of me at all so far. Then she smiles, turns her head and looks directly down at me and says, "I like your friend." She then turns around and walks away into the darkness of the night towards the forest. We are all now terrified she is going to return. I decided right there and then if we see her again in a creepy fashion, I'm calling the park warden. This is getting silly. Well, the night is winding down, so we all decide to walk together to the bathrooms to clean up for bed. My wife pulls up on the hoodie and says, "Babe, look." I look over to see that the site she was set up on is completely destroyed. Shit everywhere, just stuff, garbage, clothing, food, everywhere. I thought, okay, this is weird. Could this have been a bear? No, we would have heard it. I then noticed that the tent is gone. She is gone and left the site a complete mess. As luck would have it, the park patrol was completing their fire rounds and were at the messed up site when we were returning from the bathrooms. We told them there was a girl staying here who was acting erratic, and we suspected she was squatting on the site based on her conversation with the two girls from earlier in the week. We didn't see her again for the rest of our trip until the last full day. There's a great little lookout point not far from our site, which has amazing views of the river and valley below, and it was a perfect evening to see the sunset behind the mountains. It was a lovely final send-off to an otherwise beautiful honeymoon. Just when we thought we were done with her, she emerged once again from seemingly nowhere. We were sitting on a couple chairs that are bolted in place at the viewpoint, taking pictures of the valley below. As my wife is looking through the camera viewfinder, she picks up on the woman in the distance. She's standing in the woods a little ways down the mountains towards the valley, watching us. As her final act, she walked up the mountainside and sat right beside us on a boulder that was right beside the chairs. She says nothing, just sits there. My wife has a brilliant idea of asking me to take one last picture of the scenery, and she gives me a little wink. I pick up on her idea right away, and I position myself so this woman is going to be in the picture. My wife wanted this lady's photo in the event something bad happens with her before we can leave the area. We took our final looks at the beautiful scenery, and we headed to our camp for the night. We didn't see or hear from her again. Upon reflection, we agreed this woman had some serious mental health issues, obviously. She had zero social skills, and we did witness her attempt to make friends with those two girls that shafted her in a terrible way. That being said, she did things way beyond the realm of acceptable social awkwardness. There were moments I thought she would pull out a knife and kill us all where we stood. More than that, the stalking, the midnight screaming, and running off into the woods at night was terrifying to us, and I feel a story worthy of the sub. I do have a photo on a thumb drive somewhere, and we'll see about uploading a pixelated photo if it's appropriate. To anyone else, the picture just looks like a person is sitting in a shot, but to us, it's a reminder of our wild adventure and the start of an amazing marriage. The OP then posted a picture of the woman despite being extremely hesitant at first. He knew she wasn't in the best state of mind, but he knew that so many other people wanted to see the woman. And to many surprise, the image of the woman wasn't who they expected her to look like at all. I think I've stumbled upon a trafficking ring. In this section, we'll be taking a look at this person's experience with a supposed trafficking ring at their local mall. The post starts off with this: I work in a popular mall in my area, and I am almost positive that there is a trafficking ring here. Twice I have been approached by girls my age asking to recruit me to a Bible study, or to come pray with them. The first time it happened, she was a customer. I politely declined and asked her if there was anything she was shopping for that I could help her find. She denied and said that she didn't have any money on her. She was also accompanied by 3 older men. It gave me the creeps. Her demeanor was unsettling and she wouldn't stop staring at me even when I was showing her different products. It was definitely odd, but I brushed it off later. The next time it happened, I was on break and out of my store on my way to get a coffee. The mall was moderately busy, and all of a sudden, this girl around the same age as me sprinted towards me and asked if I wanted to go to Bible study. Again, I declined and said, no, I'm not religious. However, it was during this time that the OP started to notice even more stranger things. The part that gets me is that each time they never introduce themselves, give a group or church name, give any pamphlets, flyers, cards, etc. These girls are almost always with older men. I also recently found out that a girl was kidnapped from this mall and found later at a trafficking ring bust about 6 months ago. It's not much, but there's definitely something going on. Church groups, to my knowledge, usually stand together in public places and hand out flyers or have information booths. I feel like it's rare for them to single out people in public. This is all speculation, however, my intuition believes that this is something more. Now, of course, this odd interaction not only raised a ton of concern and red flags for the OP, but for those who commented on the post. A ton of them stated that the OP should call up their local police department or even the FBI, as informing the mall cops wouldn't be ideal, since they're typically not trained in investigating criminal organization. More so, their role is to prevent shoplifting, stop fights, and so on. However, on the other side, it was argued that at least informing the guards about what was happening could be beneficial. A user named Reverend Jesus stated that the group might just be a regular old run-of-the-mill cult, with the OP responding that it might be a possibility, but it's definitely still predatory in nature and that nothing good is happening in the group. It's also been stated that the whole aspect of cult members hanging out in public areas such as the mall isn't really anything out of the ordinary. As pointed out by commenters, there have been numerous religious cults that operated like this, such as the Unification Church, or informally known as the Moonies, which for context is a religious movement that was founded by Sun Myung Moon. In Sun Myung Moon's book titled The Divine Principle Informs the Belief of the Unification Church, Moon considered himself the second coming of Christ, as he completed a mission Jesus Christ couldn't achieve due to his crucifixion. On top of this, Moon revealed that he married and raised the ideal family, to which he then called upon the members of the church to follow his examples and to participate in God's plan for restoration. Another topic that was consistently brought up was if the members mentioned anything regarding the lines of God the Mother. For context, the cult Church of God is a religious movement that originated in South Korea in 1964. After the founder's death, An Sang-hong, in 1985, the church movement expanded from just being in South Korea to numerous parts of the world. Their core belief is that An Sang-hong is the embodiment of Christ and his daughter, Zhang Gyoja, is considered God the Mother, which is what was referenced earlier. The reasoning behind this is that they believe that once Jesus died, he came back to earth in the form of a woman, which is why she got the title of God the Mother. Going back to the Reddit post, it was explained that it wasn't uncommon for this cult to be recruiting members in a public place like the mall, so this was a possibility. However, the OP hasn't responded to the comment. But on the other side, a lot of people were like, okay, but no, this isn't how people are trafficked. Basically, they said that a majority of the time, people aren't recruited out in the public, especially working people in stores at malls. More often than not, the most vulnerable people are drug addicts, the homeless, migrants, and so on. This method of confronting people made absolutely no sense to them. From what I've seen in the comments, a majority of people agreed that the OP may have been attempted to be lured into a religious cult, but being trafficked wasn't likely the situation. They also agreed to get the authorities involved if it kept continuing, but as of now, the OP hasn't made any further comments. What are your guys' thoughts about the situation? Let me know in the comments down below. That's gonna end it off for today's video. If you made it this far, I just want to thank you so much for watching. Now before this video ends, I just want to apologize for not posting as consistently. I don't even know by the time I finish editing this, it will be out in November. Hopefully it is, but If that's not the case, I only uploaded one video in November, and I try to upload a video every 1 to 2 weeks, but I guess this month I just couldn't. And the reasoning behind this is that some of you may have known that I just created an ASMR channel. And to be honest, my focus has been on that channel. I've been consistent with it, and it's something I genuinely like doing. But don't get it twisted, I still love making these types of horror related videos, and I'll never stop creating them. It's just currently, I'm more interested in ASMR. So hopefully you guys understand that. But with that being said, I just want to thank you guys for sticking along with me. It's great to know that I have a small community of people who will watch me no matter what I post, and it's always cool to see the same people literally all the time commenting on every video. So I just want to thank all of you who do that, and for those who are new around here, thank you for stopping by. But yeah, that's gonna end it off for today's video. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I do hope you guys have a great one. And before you leave, I just want to let you know that I truly mean that. I truly hope you watching do have a great one. Alright, I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye for now.